Closing out the month of May, I just saw the movie Ezra. Let's talk about it. Movie's directed by Tony Goldwyn, also stars Tony Goldwyn in a minor role, stars Bobby Cannavale, Robert De Niro, Rose Byrne, William Fitzgerald, and Vera Farmiga, and Whoopi Goldberg. So Max and Jenna have a son named Ezra. Ezra has autism and he's just been expelled from his third school, and that school is suggesting he go to a school for kids with special needs. His mother, Jenna, is on board and thinks that's the best decision, and his father, not so much. Ezra had a little accident. He winds up in the hospital with just some minor scrapes and bruises, but CPS gets involved and they are recommending that he go on, well, not recommending, they are court ordering that he go on medication, and he also go to a certain special needs school. Father not too happy about it. Things get violent. Now he has a 3-month restraining order. He's not allowed to see his son for 3 months. He doesn't handle that very well. He decides he's going to take matters into his own hands, and he decides to take his son on a road trip, effectively kidnapping him, committing a federal crime because he takes him across state lines. Rainn Wilson, did I mention Rainn Wilson is in this? I almost didn't recognize him. I'm so used to seeing him look like Dwight. I think this movie is very good, but I think depending on what your expectations are, I think you're either going to be pleased with this or you're not. If your expectations are that this is going to be a movie about a little boy with autism and us seeing his autism, I think you're going to be sorely disappointed. This movie isn't so much, even though the movie is called Ezra and Ezra is our title character here, he is a very leading presence in this movie. This movie really isn't so much about his autism, but more so his father's acceptance and the way his father deals with his autism, and also his father's own issues. The representation here, if that's what you're looking for, the representation here isn't so much for kids like Ezra, but more so for parents like Max. You have a lot of parents who have children with special needs, and they have a hard time dealing with and accepting their diagnosis. And I imagine, I'm not a parent, but I imagine for a lot of parents, it can be very devastating to find out that your child is not going to have it as easy as you did, that your child is going to struggle, that you may not as the parent have the tools necessary to help them, that you as the parent might not be enough, you might not be equipped enough, that you're going to have to go through outside help. And I imagine at times being a parent of a child with special needs, at times you can feel like a failure, like you're not, like it must seem unfair, like, why am I not enough? Why do I have to send him to a special school? Why does he need to go on medication? Like, why can't he just be in the real world? Why does he have to be in his own world? Like, he's struggling with his son being different, but he loves his son and he accepts his son, but he doesn't accept the diagnosis, so to speak. He has a hard time reconciling with the fact that his son is just, everything about him is different. The way he processes information, the way he processes touch and food and utensils, everything is different. And just the battle between acceptance and love and that fine line, that's kind of what this movie is about. But also at this movie's core is a theme about self-love and self-acceptance, because that's part of his problem with his lack of acceptance of his son's diagnosis, is that you see this more towards the end where you realize that's why he's having such a hard time. It's because when he looks at his son, he sees himself. And I'm just speaking from personal experience. It's really hard to look in the mirror and not see your own reflection. I cried like a little baby, because he's thinking this whole time that he can't really relate to his son, that his son doesn't get it, or he doesn't get his son, or he feels like he's not doing a good job. And it's this one moment where his son flips it on him and he realized that his son is listening to him, that his son does take him seriously, and that he does understand his son because his son understands him. It's such a beautiful little moment. And I cried. The story itself at times, I don't want to say it feels flat, but it's almost like you have a solid story and then there are some dips. Does that make sense? It's like we're we're starting to lose a little verisimilitude a bit. There are some dips. But there's something that this movie does, and maybe I'm crazy. I mean, I am, but maybe I'm crazy. I felt like, I don't know if this was intentional or not, but this is kind of what I got out of it. Maybe I just need to get diagnosed. I don't know. But we got a peek inside Ezra's head a bit. Autism is a spectrum, it's different for everyone that has it, but there is a common, it seems symptom, I don't know what the proper word is, of sensory overload. So you have very loud actors in this movie. You have Rose Byrne, who's loud, Tony Goldwyn, who's loud, Bobby Cannavale, who's loud, Robert De Niro, all very, very loud and expressive. And at times in the movie, they're speaking over one another, and it's such an overload. It's very, very heavy. It was very it made me uncomfortable at times, just when everyone was speaking at the same time and there was just so much noise, and it's just like it was too much. And I don't know if that was supposed to be on purpose, but I think it was kind of supposed to put us in Ezra's shoes a bit of what it's like living in a world where there's just so much going on at one time, and there's no silence, there's no stillness. So he's with his dad and he's in a club. It's amazing because clearly Ezra has some sensory processing issues, with touch and certain textures of food. He doesn't like to be touched or hugged, but his dad is definitely a source of comfort for him. And I think it's because, and we don't find this out until the end, but him and his dad are a lot alike. And I think Ezra realizes this before his dad catches on. So it's amazing how he's able to be in loud places like a club, and yet when people are speaking very loud, he kind of shrinks back. I think just being with his dad, there's this sense of understanding, a commonality, a bond that's not quite realized just yet. So it's very interesting to see how some things work and how some things don't. And, there's so much noise around Ezra and him trying to kind of figure out how to filter out that noise and just make it quiet. And then we get the scene where in the middle of Nebraska and it's just open air and it's quiet. And then there's horses and it's beautiful. And you really get to see him just physically woosah. It's beautiful. It's beautiful how we're taken on this journey of autism in two different characters, because that's a question that kind of pops up throughout the movie did Ezra get his autism from his father? Was this inherited? Is this why there's such a generational struggle here, because he had issues with his father and now Ezra's having issues with his father? I'm wondering if there's just this common thread of neurodivergency that just sits on that Y chromosome, and they all have it. It's like once they figure that out, I feel like it'll just be golden. They'll know what steps to take. Now, I've never been diagnosed with anything, and I probably should have been, so I can't claim anything. All I know are what my own little quirks are, and my habits and my tendencies, and when I get overwhelmed, when I get overstimulated, and when there's too much noise, and how I respond to that. But I think the most effective thing about this movie, and I don't know if it was intentional, I don't know if this was written to the script, if it was designed that way, but the way the writer and the director place us in Ezra's shoes and allow us these little moments to know what it feels like to be him. Like, this is what it feels like to be overstimulated, to just feel like there's too much touching you and nothing's touching you at all. Overall, I thought it was a sweet family drama, heartwarming, and, a tearjerker. Has its issues. Again, it just these little dips in the story where we're starting to lose reality a little bit. But for the most part, I can't complain. That was sweet. That was really, really sweet. It's one of those movies, I think if you're the right person, it makes you feel seen. It makes you feel understood. Kind of like the movie The Matilda, the musical that came out on Netflix, 2 Christmases ago? And a lot of people wrote to the director, the writer of the music, about how the song in that movie, Quiet, really explained their ADHD, their autism. Like, it holy crap, this makes sense. This fits me. And that was never the intention. But it's like, oh my God, I found something that speaks about me. I'm not crazy. I'm not alone. I think this is one of those movies that can make people feel seen, heard, or understood. But that's it. That's all I got for that one. I thought it was a cute little film. It's called Ezra, directed by Tony Goldwyn. If you see it, let me know what you thought. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and share. Thank you so much for taking the time. You guys are wonderful. And I'll see you next time.